I remember his hands, the way they gripped my arm and pulled me into his room, the way they slammed the door shut behind me and moved my body, the way the one hand landed firmly on my waist, pulling me closer while the other covered my mouth, preventing me from screaming. I was just 13 years old when I met Nick at my grandparents' house. I started talking to him and found out that we shared the same hobbies and interests. It was crazy how much chemistry we had. Before we left my grandparents' house, Nick took me aside and asked for my number. My heart nearly burst through my chest. You see, I was a very plain girl. I wasn't exactly the type any boy pined for. This was something new. We exchanged numbers, hugged goodbye, and I honestly don't think I stopped blushing until the next day when I arrived home. It wasn't until a few months later that I found out we would be moving back into the States. I was so excited. We'd be closer with my grandparents, and I'd be closer to Nick. I slapped myself. What was I thinking? I couldn't be in love with him already. But maybe this was fate. Some people are just drawn together, right? By the next month, we had already made the move, and I remember turning 14 not long after. I went to the same school as Nick, but he was at least 3 years ahead, so we didn't see each other that much. Still, I was able to make friends, meet a boy named Adam, get into a relationship, fall in love, and eventually break up with him. Even though we ended on good terms, I remember being devastated after the fact. It felt like the right person at the wrong time. My friends were torn between who to side with. So suddenly, I found myself all alone with no one but Nick. I should have seen the red flags, but it's hard to see with tears in your eyes. For the next few months, we grew closer. The fact that we were at the same school and he was around my grandparents' house often didn't hurt either. I started to see why they treated him like family and kept him so close. I never had any siblings, but I imagined he was the perfect son, grandson, brother, partner, you name it. He was handsome, sweet, compassionate. He was what my family might consider calling a good influence. We enjoyed each other's company, and before I knew it, I fell for him. Then, one day, Nick turned to me and asked, "Are you single?" My heart started beating. "Yes? Why do you ask?" He looked at me and smiled. "Just curious." My heart beat faster. Most people get butterflies, right? But all I remember was feeling nausea for some reason. I felt like I was going to vomit, and I needed a glass of water. As I walked over into the kitchen, I noticed Nick wasn't on the couch anymore. I could faintly see his bedroom door cracked open, the light on. I walked over and opened it. My heart was racing now. "Nick, are you in?" Suddenly, a hand grabbed me, pulling me inside and slamming the door shut. I freaked out at the sound of it being locked. Where was he? My eyes flung open to find that my attacker was Nick? I was confused and tried pulling away. He had one hand over my mouth and the other gripping my back. I was no match for his strength. He looked at me and whispered, "Shh, close your eyes." Thinking it was some weird joke, I laughed nervously and I closed them. What is he doing? I thought. And that's when I felt his hand be replaced with his lips pressing against mine. His tongue made its way between them into my own mouth. I couldn't pull away, and a part of me didn't want to. I felt myself kissing back. This is wrong, my brain seemed to say, but I ignored it. Finally, he pulled away, smiling. My face was burning red as I turned away to unlock the door, hoping that was all he wanted. His hand slammed it shut again. He grabbed my wrist and shoved me toward the bed. I saw it in his eyes. I knew what he was planning. I tried pleading. "Nick, I don't wanna." But he cut me off. "Quiet. It'll go faster if you stay quiet." He threw me on the bed with such force that it stunned me. His hands gripped my wrists and his legs were pressed firmly against mine. I couldn't move, couldn't run, and I didn't know what he'd do if I screamed. "You wanted this," he growled. I shook my head, but he shoved me harshly. "You look so pretty when you're scared," he whispered, edging towards my neck. When he finished, he left the room, leaving me there on his bed. I didn't move for a long time. Finally, I heard his snores in the living room. I grabbed my clothes and got dressed before leaving his house to run back on my own. I know it was wrong. I know it wasn't my fault. But I felt responsible. I felt ashamed. A few weeks later, he went off to college and I never saw him again. That was when I started feeling sick. I woke up exhausted. A few weeks after that, I realized I missed my period. I got 3 different pregnancy tests from the drugstore without my parents' knowledge. Next thing I remember is sitting on the bathroom floor waiting for what felt like years for the results. With shaky hands, I look over at each test. 1 negative, 1 positive, and another positive. I broke out in tears and sobbed. I didn't know what to do. What could I do? I couldn't tell my family or Nick. I had no one. No one except Adam. Through my broken sobs, I asked him to come over. When he found me on the bathroom floor, sobbing my heart out next to 3 pregnancy tests, he pretty much figured out what had happened. As he comforted me there, I told him everything. He was furious and blamed himself. He thought, had he not broken up with me, maybe it wouldn't have happened. He took my hands and told me everything would be alright. He told me he still loved me and the life growing inside of me despite everything. So together, we quietly went to the hospital to find out that the father of my baby wasn't who I thought he was. As it turns out, many years ago, my father had a brother, my uncle. After some family incident, he was banished from the family. Ties were cut and he started his own little family and they were happy for a while. But when he and his wife got into an accident a couple of years later, my grandparents took in their baby boy. I guess, in some way, they might have felt responsible. That baby was Nick. Nick is my cousin. I thought for a long time whether or not to tell my family. It would have been so easy to tell them it was Adam's, but doing the right thing is never easy. So I told them the truth. They didn't blame me like I blamed myself. They didn't shame me like I thought they would. They just supported me. They asked if I wanted an abortion, but I turned it down. It was against my beliefs. I couldn't just get rid of my baby because of what their father had done. So, while I carried the baby, we went to trial against Nick. Even though it shouldn't have been, it was a lengthy trial. But sooner or later, it happened. Nick went to jail. I don't know for how long, and I don't know if I care, because I have also got a restraining order against him. He's never going to see me or my beautiful baby girl Abigail ever again. Abigail might not have Nick, but she has a father in Adam. She knows they're not technically related, but she doesn't care. Because what makes a father is not the ability to have a child, but the courage to raise one.